I've got a confession to make, and for the past 18 months, maybe 2 years, I haven't been practicing what I preach, and I want to come clean about this, and I want to open up and kind of share it, even though this is something that I've been kind of putting off or wanting to hide or not wanting to express to people because it's a pretty sensitive thing and it's not something that I'm proud of. So this video is probably going to be pretty difficult to record, in all honesty. I thought about just putting this in a thread or writing an email about it, but honestly, I feel like that would just be putting a layer of ambiguity or a layer of kind of abstraction between myself and this topic, which is to some degree a continuation of the same theme that I've been going through, which is why I've decided to record a video on this, even though it's quite a lot harder to do. So basically, for the past 2 years, 18 months, 2.5 years, but particularly the past 18 months, I've basically become a recluse. I've cut myself off from the world and kind of got to the position where I have no friends. And it kind of sucks to say that. I've kind of been aware of it for a while, but I didn't take the steps to overcome this. And, you know, I help guys improve their dating lives and get into relationships. And a big part of doing that is helping them improve their social lives. So it kind of seems incongruent with, what I teach clients, and I became very kind of almost hypocritical to myself, which is why I want to admit this and talk about why it's been like this, which is probably going to be the harder part, in all honesty. But I am married. I have 2 kids and had 2 kids, and a big part of this comes down to the situation that I've been going through with my family lately. And I just want to kind of, preface this that I have a great marriage. I do really, really love my wife. I love both my children, but we've had, a lot of struggles, which have, led me to this position and caused difficulties for our family. So I've talked about this before, but for some of you who maybe don't know me, or this is, you followed me more recently, or just missed when I talked about it, or when I have talked about it, because I don't bring it up that often. But my firstborn son, who was born around 2 years ago, was born with a very serious brain condition, and he was pretty seriously disabled. And this was obviously a big challenge for us, obviously a big challenge for him, of course. And you might be able to hear my second son in the background. Thankfully, he's healthy. He's playing with his mum at the moment. But my first son was born with a pretty severe, brain defect. And we found out about this when my wife was about maybe 5 months pregnant, something like that, 4 or 5 months pregnant. We went for a normal fetal abnormalities check, and it came through that he had a small cerebellum, which is part of the brain, and a few other little issues as well. And we were living in Thailand at that time, and they gave us the option to terminate the pregnancy and to as they thought it would be pretty stressful. Now, we chose not to do that for a number of different reasons. One, we're Christian, and we decided that should God decide to take his life, then that's fair, but that's not our decision to take. We also, like, well, we don't know what he's going to be like when he's born. What if they're wrong, right? What if the doctors are wrong? They can be wrong. And we wanted to see his condition, like, they couldn't really tell us what this would be like, what it would cause, what kind of problems would be. So for all we know, it might just be a minor little issue that wouldn't have been an issue at all. And we wanted to give him the best chance for his life, and give him a chance at life. And when it came down to it, he was pretty severely disabled, in all honesty. He's in ICU, NICU for a long time, and yeah, eventually we got to take him home. Anyway, and we, by the way, we do, under no circumstances do we regret that decision. We're so thankful that we got to spend the time with him that we did and get to know him. And, you know, as people will be perhaps aware of, he did eventually pass away about 6 months ago, quite suddenly. But we, you know, I never expected him to live to 80 or something, but it did come as a bit of a shock. He was 19 months old when he passed away, and it did come out of the blue a bit. And we're thankful for the time we got to spend with him, and we're very thankful for everything he taught us. He definitely humbled me, which was probably something that was necessary. He taught us a lot of patience, and he actually brought my wife and I closer through this challenging experience. But through this time, I kind of began to cut myself off from the world, as I mentioned. And I was lucky that when we were in Thailand, we had friendship groups from our church, from my wife's work, from my own work as well, that we were kind of had pre-existing relationships with. Obviously, before my son was born, we lived in Thailand for 5 years. And when my son was born, we did close off a bit, but we kind of already had this idea of, like, people knew us before our son, and they knew who we were, they knew our characters and everything. And when our son was born, it was like they knew our problem, but they knew, like, it was like, in my mind anyway, that didn't define me in their eyes. And that was a big thing. And we did cut off from some friends. We didn't hang out as much just because of, you know, practical reasons as well. We were at hospital the first couple of months every day, and then, you know, 3 or 4 times a week, and then it gradually reduced over time. But that was, you know, very draining. Obviously, looking after him was a 24-hour job, and it's, even, you know, looking after a baby as it is tricky. Looking after a disabled baby is even trickier, having had a healthy child since. So there were practical reasons behind this, but we eventually decided to move from Thailand to be closer to my wife's family in Indonesia, for support for us and support for our son, and also to have just have kind of a, you know, speak the language. And even though I could speak a little bit of Thai, I'm not even close to being fluent, and it just kind of made sense for us in the situation we were in. And upon moving to Indonesia, I, you know, didn't have that pre-existing friendship group that I had in Thailand. And at that point, that's why it says it became really bad kind of 18 months ago, is because I, at that point, made a really, really bad decision. And basically, I internalized victimhood, and I basically identified myself. And this is the mistake I made, right? This is nothing to do with my son, nothing to do with my wife, nothing to do with anything else. This was a decision that I made where I began identifying myself as, like, the dad of the disabled kid. And this was 100% my fault, and I really wish I hadn't done this. But when we did move to Indonesia, I basically stopped. You know, I didn't try and make any new friends. I kind of withdrew even more than I had before, and just kind of spent time with my wife, with my son, and then latterly my second son, who was born, thankfully healthily, as I mentioned, about 3 months before my firstborn passed away. And the reason I'm kind of sharing this, and the reason I'm saying this, is because I can see this with hindsight, right? I can see this in hindsight now. It's been 6 months since my son did pass away, and I can, you know, I've kind of come through the grieving period and feel like I can kind of realize those patterns that I made at the time that maybe I was blind to. And I want to kind of share this because the context that caused me to become reclusive, to isolate myself from the world, was real, right? Like, that was a really challenging, really difficult situation. It was, you know, very emotionally draining. It really, really, you know, not a pleasant thing to go through, even though there was all these wonderful experiences that came with my son, and he was, still a very cute kid. But the way that I responded to the reality of my situation made things worse. And that's the really important thing I want to get from this, because any of you who might be going through a very difficult situation, or any of you who are, got real circumstances that are causing your life to be difficult, like, that is real. I don't want to take away from that. But we still always do have a choice over how we respond to it. And yes, we can't live exactly the same perhaps as if we weren't suffering those problems, but it doesn't mean we have to retreat into ourselves as I did. And, it's funny because I was aware of all this, because with my clients, I will literally help them overcome the same things that I was going through. And in the past, one of the reasons I wanted to record this video now is because in the past 2 or 3 weeks, I've took a conscious effort to practice the very things I teach my clients way more so. And within two weeks or so, I've already become kind of embedded in a friendship group, a pre-existing friendship group that I've just managed to kind of, I don't want to use the word like infiltrate or something, make it sound like I'm a spy or something, but like I've managed to kind of put myself, in that area and become friendly with the people there. I'm not going to say I'm friends with them yet. I've only known them 2 weeks, but I've been invited to a couple of social events. I've been to a couple of social events, and there'll be more in the future. And, I've also tried to do things like this, be a bit more expressive, trying not to hide everything that's going on in my life, try and become more responsive on Twitter again. People who have been following me a very long time, particularly my mutuals, will have noticed, I basically stopped commenting on people. I stopped talking to people. I stopped chatting much in my DM groups, things like that. And this is all, as a consequence of what I was going through, but as a consequence of my mindset towards that. And I'm consciously trying to break out of that, because I could just stay in it forever. I could say, this is me, this is who I am. I'm no longer that guy who can make friends with people, goes out, who has an active social life. And that would be a choice that I was making. So yeah, I wanted to share that with you just in case some of you guys are going through something similar, and reminder that you're not defined by your situation. It's real, but you can choose to respond differently. And I wish in hindsight that I had done that. I'm glad that throughout this, I did have my wife and my family to support me. My parents came to both Thailand and Indonesia for extended periods during this time. I've had my wife's family, who I'm very, very close with as well, to support me. And without, my wife herself to support me, I don't know, what kind of position I'd be in. So it wasn't like I was completely isolated, but I used those support networks as an excuse to get away from other things that are important, like male friendship, which is so important for men. So I wanted to share this with you because it's only kind of reinforced why I do what I do. I help men find the kind of women they want to spend their life with. I give them the skills to be able to get into that kind of relationship more so. And, having gone through this experience with the support of my wife only further reinforces how important that is, and kind of gives me added motivation to help more men do that. So on that context, I am gonna, I'm kind of ahhing over saying this, but I do think it's important. I do want to help people. So I am going to give away, my free guide to meeting your ideal match. It's free. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I don't want to make any money off this video at all, but it's free, and it can potentially help you if that's something you're looking for, and I want that to be the case. So yeah, I didn't really know where I'd go with this. I didn't script it out. I had a couple of points I wanted to touch on, but yeah, I'm probably not going to edit this very much, honestly. I want to kind of keep this raw. I don't want to put some layers of abstraction in, as I say, and kind of distract away from the heart of what I'm getting at. So hopefully this is something that is meaningful for you. Hopefully it's something that can help you. Hopefully it can be something that you can well, hopefully it's not something you can relate to, but if it is, I hope it gives you strength and helps you come through it, because, you know, this was a tough situation and we did come through it, and there was blessings all along it, all through it. My son was a blessing. As I say, he taught my wife and I so much, and made us both, and from my perspective, definitely made me a better man for it. I wish things would have been different, of course, but they weren't. So yeah, I just wanted to share this, and at this point I'm rambling, so I'm gonna cut it off, and yeah, just thank you for taking the time to listen to this. Yeah, Jack out.